Now let's talk a little bit about Schumacher, because he in a way over the duration of your career is it fair to say he was your biggest rival?
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
And how important was it for you and your motivation to have a rival as good as him?
It was very motivating. It was very motivating indeed. You need competition, let's say it this way.
Was it more satisfying beating him than anyone else?
Well, I would say yes. But, what I did like Michael to compete against him, because he was a very consistent to race against. Even he was quite a tough one, sometimes very aggressive to race against, but he was consistent. And
consistently aggressive.
Yeah, yeah, that's the exactly correct way. Yes,
you kind of knew what you were getting into bed with every time you went wheel to wheel with him.
Yeah, I knew what was going on. But some drivers, one day they had this day, one day after that, so you never knew what was happening. So it was not pleasant racing. So with Michael, you knew what's going on, and Michael was the toughest and the most consistent.
What do you think were his strengths and weaknesses as a driver?
Well, Michael had a very good technical knowledge, that's for sure. And I think that was a very important element. Physically very fit driver indeed. And then one thing what he did have, but it's not maybe because of him, but in those days when I was racing, when he was racing with Ferrari, they were testing in Fiorano. They didn't have what time the track is open in a track closing. They were just there flat out as much as they want. The own track for Ferrari. And we had to go to Silverstone to testing with opens at 10, closes at 12, opens at 1, or was it whatever.
That's really
finishing at 5. So you have actually, if you started your installation lap in the morning at 10 o'clock and then you had some kind of failure in the engine, it takes 3 hours to change everything. So you lost half a day.
And you really felt at the time that gave them a massive advantage.
Oh, massive. I mean, if we would have run from 8 o'clock until 8 o'clock in the evening.
Actually, remember, didn't Ron try and buy Liddon Hill, which is a little racetrack in the southeast of England?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. For that reason, he wanted his own Fiorano.
Absolutely. It would have made a massive difference in terms of development of the car itself, the drivers, including mechanics. Practicing for the tire changes or refueling, whatever, it would make a massive difference. I think it would bring also the drivers, the team closer, the mechanics closer. Everything would improve through that. So that was one of the things what Michael had big advantage.
What about Michael's weaknesses? What did you pinpoint? Because I'm sure when you're racing against a guy, you have to weigh up in your mind, don't you, what their strengths and their weaknesses are. You've listed the strengths. What do you think were his weaknesses?
Well, he did not have too many weaknesses, to be honest. But how would I say? Is it quite a long pause now? I try to think the weaknesses. There was not too.
He won 91 Grand Prix, didn't he? And
I think Michael knew that he's quick and he knew what he was doing. But I think Michael knew same time I'm fast and I know that. And I think Michael saw when he saw me that way. Mika thinks he's quicker than me. So it was a little bit psychological game there, but. I think Michael showed a lot of confidence outside, but I don't think inside he confidence was lacking quite often, and you can see that. Well, I saw that when it's happening, and that was the time I attack. Anyway, I mean I have an enormous respect of the way he was working on with the team and developing a car together and able to achieve what they did. It was incredible. But he didn't do alone that, he had a great team around him. That I felt he has a lack of confidence, you know. But difficult to say when you're not driving on a racetrack. I think he did some desperate moves sometimes. I felt, you know, when you're racing out there and you are slower than somebody else, you don't do this kind of maneuvers, you know, when you are really slower, because it's ridiculous. So I felt that was something to do that way. You don't. The season is long and there's a lot of races. So one race not gonna end of the day is not gonna change the whole world.
Were you surprised by Adelaide 94 when he crashed with Damon Hill, or Jerez 97, the race that you went on to win actually, but when he crashed with Jacques, were you surprised by those maneuvers?
No, not at all. No, it was the last race. It was about the championship, so I understand that. I think easy to say I would do the same, but I would not in this level. I would not do that in Formula One. It would be definitely too obvious to do something like, you can play some tricks and try everything in this world, but you don't crash into somebody. I think that's too much. I mean, you can do some naughty stuff out there on you know, do something which is not so following the rule book, you know, but crashing into
brake
somebody.
testing, that kind of thing.
No, I would not even do that, because that's dangerous. That's basically crashing.
What do you mean? What's your box of tricks?
You can always do some tricks, because some places you just simply cannot overtake. You know, so you can do driving with only 70% and just tease the driver behind. That way they will lose their nerves. You know, like what Michael did for me in '99 in Malaysia. I think he did. You know, so you can do that quite easily. It's not shown on a television, but it's really nasty for a racing driver to perform behind the driver like that. And if I would have been in the same position, I would have do the same thing. But Damon, of course, was different, because there are different positions in a race. But
do you think you were quicker than him?
Of course. I think we had a little bit different driving technique. And that was, I think that Michael was technically very good in low speed, and I felt I was technically maybe a bit better in high speed. But nevertheless, it was okay.